A rejection letter lands, and it feels final. You put real effort in, and the answer came back no. It is easy to read that as a verdict on your business and walk away quietly. But a rejection is rarely the end of the road, and often it is not even a real setback. It is information about what a future application needs to look like. Most applications are turned down for reasons that can be understood and main burden that owners expect fixed. So we will look calmly at how to respond to a no, when to appeal, when to strengthen and reapply, and how to turn a rejection into a stronger next attempt. One note before we begin, this channel is educational only. We are not a government agency. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by Go Business, Enterprise Singapore, or any government body, and nothing here is official advice. We name no schemes, no criteria, and no figures because those change over time. So we will always point you back to the official source, gobusiness.gov.sg, to confirm what actually applies to your situation before you rely on any of it. A rejection is not the end. The first thing to understand is that a rejection answers one application at one moment, not your whole business. Something about this attempt did not meet what was being looked for, and that something is usually nameable and often changeable. Many businesses that later succeed with support were turned down at least once, learned from it, and came back better prepared. Treating it as a starting point rather than an ending is what turns a rejection into progress. Why applications get turned down? Applications are declined for a handful of common reasons, and knowing them helps you locate your own. Sometimes it is fit, where the project did not match what the support was for. Sometimes it is scope, where the plan was too broad or vague to assess with confidence. Sometimes it is documentation, where the case was reasonable but the paperwork did not back it up. And sometimes it is simply timing. Most of these are fixable once you know which one you are facing. Read the reason before you react. Before anything else, read the explanation you were given slowly and completely, because your whole response depends on understanding the actual reason. It is tempting to skim a rejection and jump to conclusions, but the stated reason and the one you imagine are often different. Look for what was specifically missing, not just the fact of the no. If the explanation is brief or unclear, the first move is to ask for more detail rather than guess. Do not take it personally. A rejection stings because you are close to your business, but taking it personally is the response that helps you least. When you read a no as a statement about your worth, you get defensive, you stop learning, and you either give up or fire back. The calmer stance is to treat the decision as feedback on a document, not a verdict on you. The application did not land this time, and applications are things you can revise. That separation is what lets you use a rejection instead of being wounded by it. Work out exactly what was missing. Once you are calm, get specific about the gap. A rejection points, however faintly, at something the application lacked, and your job is to name it as precisely as you can. Was the project not clearly connected to the support? Was a required piece of evidence absent or weak? Was the plan too loose to evaluate? The more exactly you name what was missing, the more directly you can fix it. A named gap is something you can close, appeal, or strengthen and reapply. There are two broad paths after a no, and choosing the right one matters. An appeal makes sense when the decision rested on a genuine misunderstanding or factual error, where the substance was sound and something was simply missed. But if the rejection pointed to a real weakness, then appealing rarely helps, and the stronger move is to fix the gap and reapply. Be honest about which situation you are in, because appealing a fair decision only wastes time. State this. Tighten the scope of the project. If scope was the issue, make the project smaller, clearer, and easier to assess. A plan that tries to do everything at once is hard for anyone to evaluate with confidence, and confidence is what an approval needs. So narrow it to a well-defined piece of work with a clear purpose, a clear boundary, and a result you can describe simply. A focused project that is obviously sound travels further than a sprawling one nobody can weigh. Complete the documentation. If the paperwork was the weakness, the fix is patient and unglamorous. Gather and complete what was missing. Applications rest as much on the evidence behind them as on the idea itself, and a strong idea with thin support is easy to decline. Go back through what was asked for. Find where your submission was incomplete and fill those gaps properly. This dull, careful work is frequently the difference between a no and a yes. Get the eligibility right. Sometimes the real issue is fit, that this support was never the right match for this project, and polishing changes nothing. This is not a failure, it is a discovery, and it saves you pouring effort into a door that will not open. Step back and check, at the official source, what your project actually aligns with, rather than forcing it against something it was never meant for. Finding that out early beats being turned down again for the same reason. Talk to the agency constructively. If anything about the decision is unclear, it is entirely reasonable to reach out and ask, as long as you do it constructively. Approach the conversation to understand, not to argue, asking what would make your future application stronger, rather than why you were wronged. A calm, genuine question about how to improve is far more likely to get a helpful answer than frustration is. You are not entitled to a reversal, but you can usually seek clarity. Time your next applications. Timing matters as much after a rejection as before one. Reapplying immediately, with nothing meaningfully changed, tends to produce the same result, so give yourself the time to actually close the gap that was identified. But waiting too long risks the circumstances shifting under you, so do not slide into indefinite delay either. The right rhythm is to fix what needs fixing properly, then reapply once the application genuinely reflects that work, checking the current situation at the source when you do. Check the current details at the source. One steady reminder runs through all of this. What support exists, what it is for, and what it asks for can all change over time, so nothing you assume the first time is guaranteed to hold for the next. This is why we name no schemes, no criteria, and no figures here, because those are exactly the parts that move. Before you appeal or reapply, go to gobusiness.gov.sg and confirm the current reality. A closing thought. So here is the calmer way to hold a rejection. It is not a verdict on your business, it is information about what a stronger application would need. Read the actual reason before you react, keep it separate from your sense of your own worth, and name precisely what was missing. Appeal only when a genuine error was made, otherwise strengthen the scope, complete the documentation, and get the fit right before you reapply. Ask the agency constructively, time your next attempt around real change rather than haste, and confirm the current details on gobusiness.gov.sg. Everything here is general and educational. We are not a government agency, and we are not affiliated with or endorsed by anyone. And we name no schemes because they change. If this helped you see a no as a beginning rather than an end, subscribe for more plain English Singapore grant explainers, and we will keep helping you come back stronger, one improved application at a time.